Tonight, Darwin in darkness. What caused the power outage that crippled our city? The Chief Minister joins us live in the studio to answer our questions. Food poisoning fears, what you need to know to keep your family safe. And blackout bliss, the lucky let-off for thousands given the day off.
This is 9 News with Jonathan Upton.
Good evening. Nearly 70,000 power and water customers have been left in the dark, suffering through a hot and humid wet season night without electricity. The chaos was sparked at Darwin's main power station at Channel Island, but stretched all the way south to Katherine.
If you thought waking up in a warm sweat was bad, spare a thought for these hotel guests out on the street in the city in the very early hours of this morning.
We got up, I think 1:30 was the alarm in the room, and then we just slept on to about 4 o'clock, I think, 4:30. Then we got told to evacuate.
Yeah, we're all fast asleep in bed when it came over, so yeah, it was a bit of a surprise.
10 hours later, with the mercury creeping towards the forecast 33-degree maximum, still no power.
Turfed out of the hotel at 3 o'clock this morning. We still can't get back in.
Under emergency lighting only, apartment buildings became very difficult to navigate. Darkness descended on the suburbs too, nighttime driving an even more dangerous affair. Service stations were silent, and you know it's serious when the shops that never shut are deserted. Some businesses, though, defied the darkness, and everyone was searching for that silver lining.
Power might be off, but the water's still on.
And if you were cooking with gas, so was a hot breakfast.
We were going to try and do coffee, but unfortunately, bacon and eggs is definitely the order of the day.
After a long, uncomfortable night, coffee was sorely needed, but finding an open cafe was nearly impossible. This was the line-up at a Palmerston coffee van just after sunrise. The airport remaining fully operational throughout the blackout, their coffee shop one of the few still grinding.
Packed house in here this morning, but trying to get a coffee just took ages.
Traffic lights were down and all bus services cancelled.
I'm going home, but now I'll just have to find another way home, I suppose.
Most workers, except for essential public service providers, were ordered to stay home. Royal Darwin Hospital remained operational on emergency generators. Both Charles Darwin University campuses were out of commission for the whole day. Schools too were closed, but not everyone was pleased.
I want to go to school, but I don't get to.
Some supermarkets stayed open, but many had to clear fresh stock off the shelves. Fresh fish suppliers also scrambling to save their livelihood. Just as we arrived here at the wharf to interview Darwin's fishing wholesalers, the power came back on. It's just gone 1:30, almost exactly 12 hours since the power was cut. They're all now scrambling frantically to fill the orders of their suppliers, but for many, the damage has already been done.
We are losing about nearly very close to $10,000. Our shop is still closed. Half of our staff is not at work.
Lincoln Humphreys, 9 News.
The catastrophic power failure had everyone struggling to understand how the Territory's capital could be so easily crippled. Power and water prices are up, but it feels like service is down. So it didn't take long for both sides of politics to start pointing the finger.
Residents are angry and frustrated and demand to know, how could something like this happen?
It was a crisis that took power and water away for many people, some for nearly as much as 12 hours, which is a critical time frame for many Territorians.
Around 68,000 homes and businesses across Darwin, Palmerston and the surrounding rural area, all the way to Katherine, were left in the dark with no fans and air conditioning. Crews were able to restore power to Katherine and Pine Creek within 2 hours, but the rest were left to sweat for the better part of the day.
It is a rare event. System black condition is a rare event. So this is why it's such a complex process to bring it back and why it's taking this long.
The cause, not a wet season storm, but apparently a tripped circuit breaker at the Hudson Creek substation at Berrima following routine maintenance.
There was a chain of events which occurred from the initial circuit breaker failure. That's where we believe there's a problem within the system which was designed around 2010.
This triggered a protection system, causing the Channel Island power station to activate a full transmission shutdown, cutting off supply to top-end homes.
Power and Water would like to apologise for the impact it's had on our customers. We live in the community, so we're also affected by this. And as I said, we've been working to get this back.
Several investigations will be held into the cause of today's massive power failure, including looking at generators which were installed in 2010 and how they may have assisted in the snowball effect which led to the widespread problem.
when they power down, they can power down quite quickly. And when the poles and the circuit breaker didn't go in, one of the snowball effects was that the generators stopped. But with these new systems that were put in place, the new generators put in place in 2010, they can't immediately be turned back on. They have to be turned back on gradually and slowly, and that's why we saw today little pockets of the top end get power first, so we can slowly build it up.
The opposition were quick to place the blame directly at the feet of the Country Liberals government.
There's some very serious questions to be answered by the CLP, who went about taking an axe in funding to power and water, reducing the repairs and maintenance program, taking items off that all-important capital list that were about building reliability.
But the Chief Minister disputes the claimed maintenance cuts and was quick to point out Labor were in government when the last system black happened, insisting today's failure justifies the changes being made to power and water at the moment.
We need to get improvements in the system, because what happened today was exactly the same as what happened in 2010 with the system black failure then, and the same as what happened in 2009, although to a lesser degree with the Casuarina substation blowout.
And given the majority of customers were without power for around 12 hours, it's expected people's bills will be rebated up to $80 as compensation for today's inconvenience. Businesses are urged to contact their insurers. Kathleen Bruin, 9 News.
Today's outage may be the most widespread we've ever seen, but it certainly isn't the first time Darwin has been left in the dark. Our Facebook page has been flooded with reports of regular outages, and then there was the 2008 shutdown that saw a series of blackouts over several weeks.
Many Territorians sweltered through more than 12 hours without power today, but in 2008, 15,000 northern suburbs homes suffered through 2 weeks of rolling blackouts following an explosion that crippled the Casuarina substation.
Casuarina certainly was memorable, and Casuarina certainly had an impact. This is as not long-lasting as Casuarina was.
47 huge generators were shipped up to help ease the problem back then, and compensation of up to $125 offered to residents. More recently, Cyclone Carlos caused blackouts that lasted more than 2 days in parts of the northern suburbs in 2011. And far less impacting, but just as embarrassing, was the 2001 failure during the NTFL Grand Final between Palmerston and the Buffs, when 22 minutes into the final quarter, stormy weather left the stadium in darkness.
Stormy weather caused the stadium and the match telecast to black out.
And then there's the thousands of smaller outages we experience each year. In the last fortnight alone, Darwin has suffered through more than a dozen blackouts, leaving customers fuming. Included in that period, 2 major outages in 2 days, where more than 5,000 customers were affected over a 48-hour period.
We've got ice cream, we can't go back from that. Once it's sort of after the second hour of, being power outage, then, we haven't got much chance of coming back from that. So we lose stock after that kind of thing.
The problem's frustrating enough at the best of times, let alone when combined with hot and humid conditions and ever-increasing prices. Amy Colbert, 9 News.
For more now, we're joined live in the studio by Chief Minister Adam Giles. Thank you very much for your time, Chief Minister. What a mess. How embarrassing is this for your government?
Well, it wasn't good to see the power outage today. All those Territorians who were suffering without power, difficulties getting to work and not going to work, public service cancelled, and all importantly, the kids once again didn't have access to school after the teacher strike last Friday. I think it shows that we can be brought to our knees socially quite easily through such things as a power outage. This is a power outage which occurred while regular repairs and maintenance work was being undertaken at 12:30 this morning. It's taken us a long time to get it back up and running, but we're very pleased that everyone pulled together, worked hard to make sure that it was brought back online.
We saw in Kathleen's story earlier, there will be several investigations into this. Exactly what are you looking at?
Well, there's 3 things in particular. From my side where I sit, we'll be looking at how emergency services responded, how the police responded, the transport network with the kids, the schools, how the principals and teachers worked in managing those kids who turned up to school, and how we worked with RDH being able to maintain operational services to both patients within the hospital and also those within the community. We'll also have a look within the next 24 hours about what exactly went wrong with the process, about how the repairs and maintenance failure happened, and then we're working with a broader review with the Utilities Commission identifying strategically what we can do to improve the processes into the future.
Is it really good enough though? Because when Country Liberals came to government, prices went up. When can we be guaranteed a reliable supply?
Well, I think what we've seen since the failure of the Casuarina substation in 2009 and then the complete system blackout in 2010, there was a lot of work that was done at that point in time. There were new systems put in place. What we saw today through a routine repairs and maintenance work that was undertaken, there was a failure there, but fortunately, or unfortunately, but fortunately what happened was further explosions or disconnects through the power grid didn't occur because the safety mechanisms that were put in place ensured that it was only a 12-hour blackout with what could have essentially been 2 or 3 weeks had these systems not been in place.
Sorry to interrupt, that's all well and good, but when? When is services going to be up and running?
Well, they will continue to improve. Most people would know that we've got a structural reform process underway with power and water where we're trying to introduce competition, particularly through the generation and retail sectors, which will mean that when something like this may occur in terms of a blackout in the future, we'll actually have alternate providers to be able to source power from, put back in the network, so that mums and dads and kids don't have to suffer similar pain.
Very quickly, we do appreciate you being here, but aren't there some questions that maybe should be answered by Power and Water's Managing Director, John Baskerville? Like, he's getting paid $250,000 upwards a year, nowhere to be seen today, certainly publicly at least, refused to answer any questions from the media. Is that good enough? Isn't he the one who should be held accountable?
Well, John was asked not to talk to media today. I said that I would take responsibility this afternoon.
He's getting paid enough, surely?
Well, I think fair enough, Jono, but Dave Tolan is the shareholding minister of Power and Water. He took responsibility for the coordination of media and letting people know what was going on this morning, and I've taken over the role this afternoon to be able to ensure that people know that we are well coordinated in our review and response to make sure the power's on for mums and dads into the future.
Well, hopefully we'll all have a better night's sleep tonight.
Absolutely.
Power should keep going. Thanks very much, Chief Minister Adam Giles. Well, let's find out where things are at right now. Let's go live to Amy Colbert outside Power and Water headquarters in Stewart Park. What's the latest, Amy?
Well, Jono, the good news is power has now been restored to all suburbs right across the board, and services are slowly resuming right across the top end. Now, just within the last hour, bus services has resumed, and they should continue to operate as normal from now on. Also resumed are the traffic lights around town, so it should be a lot safer out on our streets for people. As for tomorrow, well, school is back and so is work for both the public sector and the private sector. Courts will be operating as normal as well. So, Jono, power permitting, seems like Thursday should be a pretty normal day.
Okay, Amy, thank you very much. Now, one of the big questions we all have during an extended blackout is, will my food still be okay? Well, given this has been a prolonged outage, the Health Department has issued some guidelines to help you make those decisions. Joining us now with the details is Ellie Cormack. Ellie.
Jono, the big catch cry today is, if in doubt, throw it out. Most of our foods keep during short power interruptions, but as we know, today's blackout has been for an extended time in most suburbs, and that's a real concern for the Health Department. Here's Director of Environmental Health, Xavier Chauvin.
Because most people have been in for a restless night, the last thing we need is a bout of food poisoning across the population. So once again, too, it's best to err on the side of caution, throw the food out.
So here's the rule of thumb. Anything that's been kept in the refrigerator should be tossed out if the power was off for more than 6 hours. We're talking about milk, seafood, chicken, rice or any salads. Frozen foods will keep for up to 24 hours if your freezer is half full and up to 48 hours if it's packed to capacity. But remember, these are just guidelines and it really depends on the quality of your appliances, your seals and often how many times you've been opening your fridge today to have a sticky beak. Of course, consuming spoiled products carries the risk of food poisoning, and it's the vulnerable groups, the aged, the young and anyone with a weakened immune system who are urged to exercise extreme caution.
Ellie Cormack, thank you. Now, while the blackout created a bad day in the office for power and water workers, for some it wasn't all bad news. Kids were given a spontaneous day off, along with 3,000 public servants.
Backyard cricket instead of the classroom for these Karama kids today. Schools are blackout and forced to stay at home with no TV or computer games. It was games of an old kind.
Yeah! Tip, brandy and hide and go seek.
What is the best thing about this power outage today?
I get to hang out with my friends.
I get to have time with animals and family.
But the babies weren't as easy to please in the early hours of the morning, the heat waking this little one up.
Yeah, and hard to get her back to sleep when she woke up.
Some tots splashed away the grumps here at the lagoon as temperatures reached over 30 degrees around 11 o'clock this morning. When power came back on at Casuarina Shopping Centre, the lure of aircon and some unexpected free time drew crowds there too. But the real winners were the pubs. An afternoon midweek beer too much to tempt workers with what many called a bonus day off.
Yeah, it's a bit strange being in the pub on a Wednesday, but what else are you going to do when there's no power?
It's been amazing. We've been very well looked after here. They've been very accommodating, but it's been unfortunate that we haven't been able to do anything else but sit here all day.
Obviously, because we're backpacking, we need to stay in touch with our family back home, and our only way of that is like our mobiles, internet, obviously your laptop and that, and we haven't been able to do that, so it's been a shame, hasn't it, mate?
And I've had to have the day off work.
Ellie Cormack, 9 News.
We'll have the rest of the day's news after the break, including the lucky escape for a driver at Coolangatta and a worrying twist in the search for the missing Malaysia Airlines plane.